With the Baki Dou anime being teased almost a year ago now, this anime seems to be just around the corner as 2025 will come to a close. And Baki Dou is considered by many as the best portion of the Baki manga. Baki Dou takes place immediately after the strongest parent-child quarrel arc, and involves one primary and honestly revolutionary antagonist named Musashi Miyamoto, who is an insanely strong swordsman that comes from the samurai time, and was resurrected thanks to the use of a soul transfer technique that placed Musashi's soul into his mummified remains, which were retrieved from the Tokyo Sky Tree. The anime will begin with a showcase of Baki's increasing boredom due to his own strength surpassing almost everybody else's in the series. And after this, the antagonist Musashi Miyamoto had awakened in his lab at the physical age of 32 years old. And while Musashi was being revived, Kaoru Hanayama had fought the ogre himself, Yujiro Hanma. And Yujiro had actually shed a nosebleed as a result, which is an impressive feat for Hanayama, even if he was thrown through a convenience store. And as Miyamoto was being shown around the modern world, Tokugawa had brought him the greatest swordsman in Japan at the time, though he had given up before they had even begun thanks to Musashi making this swordsman feel as if he was being sliced in half 7 times. And after this, Baki was talking with Mr. Tokugawa before Musashi would inevitably interrupt. And as Musashi had barged into the door, Baki had described his aura as a feeling of a giant mushroom cloud of destruction. And of course, after encountering Baki, Musashi had walked outside with him and they had begun fighting, though after Baki had thrown a kick, Musashi had caught Baki's ankles and slammed him against the ground as if Baki was a weapon himself. And after being knocked out by this attack, Baki had came back and threw a jab at Miyamoto, which had immediately rocked him for 10 seconds. However, the next jab would not land so perfectly, as when Baki had let that punch go, Musashi had caught Baki's hand and crunched it down with his grip, before Musashi would then cut Baki with his own hand, utilizing a no-sword hand technique, leading to Baki yet again collapsing and Musashi leaving to explore Tokyo. Musashi then moved on to fight Dappo, though Dappo was genuinely just being bullied, with Musashi even gripping Dappo's bald head with his palm, before Miyamoto would then slam Dappo with his sword with enough force to knock him down but not enough to injure him in order to ensure that Dappo would not die, and so that Musashi would be able to get his point across, which was that he could end Dappo at any moment. And when Retsu had learned of this, he had grown intrigued as he was dominating the boxing world with ease, and this new strong opponent has arrived. After meeting the swordsman, Retsu described him as a person with the true energy of a demon, and just like that, their match was set. Retsu began utilizing his surroundings and weapons, as he knew the only way that he would be able to best Musashi is if he had access to some sort of weapon, and Retsu had actually managed to harm Musashi thanks to an armory of weapons, though it would prove to soon be not enough, as the minute that Musashi decided to lock in and counter Retsu's attacks, he was able to dodge with ease. And the worst thing that Retsu had done is beginning this match, as this was a fight to the death, and Musashi promised to give Retsu a beautiful end. Musashi had grabbed Retsu by the peg of his leg and thrown him into the ground as he had previously done with Baki, and after a bit of fighting back and forth, Retsu's time had come and Musashi had carved him up, leading to his death in the arena after decades of fighting. Retsu, you will be missed, but Musashi was not done, and he would now be facing his greatest challenge that he would ever be able to find, in the form of Yujiro Hanma. And meeting Musashi was actually a dream come true for the ogre. But both of these legends are absolute menaces, so they instantly got ready for their fight. Yujiro had started the fight off with a solid punch to Miyamoto's face, though Musashi would then proceed to lift Yujiro off of the ground. And as a response, Yujiro immediately brought out his demon back, and demon back activated Yujiro had kicked Musashi directly into his baby makers, though apparently Musashi weirdly liked that. Itagaki, what goes on in that disturbed mind of yours, dude? Miyamoto proceeded to then use his Don't Wear Steel Empty Hands technique on Yujiro, and the ogre's hair was actually cut as he had a serious look on his face. Yujiro had fully realized that Musashi is capable of competing with him. The swordsman then attempted to use his self-acclaimed Eye of Perfection on Yujiro, but Motobe had interfered and taken the attack instead of the ogre, leaving Yujiro almost killing him if Musashi had not interfered, with Motobe believing if the ogre had taken that attack then he would not have gotten back up. And of course, after Jack Hanma had learned of Musashi, he wanted a piece of the pie, but yet again Motobe had interfered and not only knocked out all of Jack's teeth but also hogtied him, which gave Jack a complete ego destruction. Pickle had then piqued Musashi's interest after wrestling a dinosaur-sized alligator on live TV, and when Musashi had initially encountered Pickle, he had pieced him up a little bit before their official fight had begun, which consisted of complete embarrassment for Pickle as Musashi had constantly slashed at him, causing Pickle to cry and even run away eventually. And pretty much Pickle's childhood PTSD from a wasp had triggered and he had forfeited, practically tagging Motobe in at the same time. And Motobe actually did surprisingly well against Musashi. In order to keep this video somewhat brief, Motobe did the most damage to Musashi out of everybody thus far. And as a matter of fact, Motobe had technically won this fight thanks to him choking Musashi out and Musashi admitting defeat. After this, Musashi had then taken his anger out on the entire Japanese force, with it being a massacre, before he would then eventually find himself in a street fight with Kaoru Hanayama. Hanayama had punched Musashi directly with his signature punch and had actually caught Musashi's sword in his knuckle, which had somewhat humbled Musashi, as Hanayama had then punched Miyamoto again, still with the sword in his knuckle, though he would take it out and give Musashi his signature weapon back, which was the worst thing that he possibly could have done, as Hanayama would immediately proceed to be sliced on his back and then stomach, with the only thing stopping his organs from spilling out being his Muashi belt, leaving Musashi Miyamoto with another victory. But at last, Musashi Miyamoto versus Baki Hanma. Musashi immediately began this battle angry, as he began rambling about Baki as if he was a meal, leaving even Baki confused, though Musashi would then say something that we can all understand. "I mean to drink down every last drop of your blood." And even from Musashi's corner of the arena, he made his strength known with his aura, as he then called Baki arrogant for thinking that he could beat Musashi with no sword. Baki then threw a kick that only managed to slightly cut Musashi's cheek and take away a hair from his head, as even Baki would go on to admit that he had already made a mistake by missing that kick. And shockingly, Musashi had actually cut Baki's ankle and thrown a kick straight to Baki's face as soon as he had dropped, with Miyamoto having the biggest smile I've ever seen him have. And Musashi had learned kicking from his PTSD of Yujiro kicking his nuts. Miyamoto then proceeded to use his no sword style, but Baki had used his own cockroach technique to land 3 jabs on Miyamoto's face. And even though Baki's punches landed, Musashi was just happy that his balls were not kicked, as if they were, it would have already been over. You can't even blame Musashi for this being his priority. I can't even imagine how painful that would be, especially from a demon back activated Yujiro. But Musashi does not fight fair himself, and in return he had kneed Baki and his baby makers before then slashing him and giving him the feeling of being cut in half, which could have also potentially happened if Musashi had his actual sword in his hands. Baki had followed this up with a kick, but it was shut down immediately and had only led up to Baki copying Musashi's stance with a sword in hand, which had even made Musashi question if Baki was alright in the head. Baki had then thrown Musashi's own sword at him as a diversion, so that he could kick Musashi in the face, knocking him down. And when Musashi had gotten back up, he had caught Baki's next sword strike. But this is when something completely out of the blue and unexpected happened. The witch doctor that revived Musashi had jumped on him and exorcised his soul from his vessel, ending Musashi's time in the Bakiverse for now and officially marking the end of the Miyamoto arc. Let me know in the comment section below, what was your favorite moment? And if you enjoyed today's video and would like to interact with me, my community, show off your art, drop some memes, talk in general, or maybe even self-promote, then you can join the Discord that can be found in the description box below. And if you enjoyed today's video and would like to support me, then you can leave a like and subscribe. It's completely free on your end and helps me out way more than you may think. And I'm sorry for the lack of uploads, but Baki has literally just been dead. There has been absolutely zero news of anything, and Baki Rahen has been completely dead as there has been no chapters. However, I have been feeling a little creative recently, so I got some more videos like this one coming. And unless we go 2 for 2 with random hiatuses, there should be a new Baki Rahen chapter this week, so you can look forward to that. But that will be all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!